city's burning. We're invited, the night in. Welcome, my heart's so full, I'm devoted myself to the night. There's no motive, we're just listening, we're existing.
You up, I'm talking about banging something. Chill off in your crib and half a thing, probably make the sting or something. Girl, you like my bottom bitch. Post my bill, pay for my lawyer. Play your position when the mother hoes get out of order. When you wanna give me that, you purchase a plane ticket. Work around town when I bust it down, then my shit like them lanes did. It got a dick with my dick's mirror lipstick. Basically, if this bitch lay with me, she paying me. I'm on some pimp shit for real. This 2 a.m. club was about to close up. Coming through my contacts, about to call one of my hoes up. Then I met you, kick game and followed you to the breakfast spot. Fuck you like I'm ready to that night up in the Marriott. Still, you got your cherry pop. Talking switching up position, thought this shit would never stop. Motherfucker, intermission game.
But nigga, I ain't laughing. Take a swig out of this 40. Then I'ma start to spaz. And I want to make a nigga. I can double that to taxes. So no way you're on my level. Not even up in my bracket. I'm getting money. You don't see that shit every day. Shit every day. I'm getting money, you don't see that shit every day.
When you wanna give me that, you purchase a plane ticket. Work around town when I bust it down, then my shit like them lanes did. It got a dick with my dick's mirror lipstick. Basically, if this bitch lay with me, she paying me. I'm on some pimp shit for real. This 2 a.m. club was about to close up. Coming through my contacts, about to call one of my hoes up. Then I met you, kick game and followed you to the breakfast spot. Fuck you like I'm ready to that night up in the Marriott. Still, you got your cherry pop. Talking switching up position, thought this shit would never stop. Motherfucker, intermission game.
But nigga, I ain't laughing. Take a swig out of this 40. Then I'ma start to spaz. And I want to make a nigga. I can double that to taxes. So no way you're on my level. Not even up in my bracket. I'm getting money. You don't see that shit every day. Shit every day.
This is the OMFL.
You can't touch this.
And you're in the mix.
Up, I'm talking about banging something. Chill off in your crib and have a thing.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of All 22. Excuse me, my throat seems to be giving me some problems. It's probably a lack of sleep over the last couple of days, but we are excited to do this. It's been a little bit since we've been able to do one, but this is going to be good. I'm super excited. We're going to have our first guest, our Redskins owner, Mr. DenBrew's. Super excited about having you, buddy. How you doing today on a Friday?
Man, I am doing great. No work today for me, so getting into a little bit of Madden, getting into a little yard work. It's just a great day here in Ohio.
Yep, I got yard work on the horizon here in just a little bit. If I can ask a little favor, I think that there is your audio on Twitch that I know that you're watching with. If you could mute that just so that we don't have the little echo situation going, I think that'll work really good. So DenBrew, let me just lay the layout of what All 22 is going to be. So we've got several experts throughout the OMFL, and DenBrew is one of our guys who's been with us for a little bit now, and these experts have identified areas of their game where they feel like they do really well and that they are really good at. And so, what we wanted to do, the idea behind this podcast was to bring somebody on and let them share tips and tricks and insider views and perspective of how they do things and see things so that you guys can go ahead and add that to your game. And so DenBrew today is going to be breaking down how he would scout an opponent. Now, just as a quick update, this is August the 23rd, and we are dealing with this new patch. The patch is really great for Madden 20, but it has added some serious complications around how contracts work whenever you edit players, if you got to restart or don't restart. We found out that you do have to restart. We're not sure when an update's going to come out. And just like all kinds of little issues, like the creation center is down and not working since the update. So we're kind of, as we're working through those issues and complications, we figured we'd do an all 22. And so DenBrew's is going to sit here and explain to us how he would scout an opponent as he gets ready for the season, especially for an opponent maybe that doesn't play very often. So DenBrew, I'm going to turn it over to you, and we'll follow around here on the screen and let you drop some knowledge on us.
Okay, how am I sounding? Still
You're
echoey?
good, yeah.
Okay, great. So let's start off by what I want to do is I want to self scout and I want to look at my team. So we're beginning a new Madden. I got the Redskins as my team, so I need to dissect this team and figure out where my strengths lie, where my weaknesses are. And typically what I like to do is I like to start up front with my offensive line. Okay, where's my strengths there? Um, this is going to kind of direct me on what kind of team I am. Um, so when I look at my offensive line, I am looking to see, am I a pass blocking team? Am I a power run team? Do I have guards that can get out and pull? And if I do have those things, I'm going to exploit those. Um, I want to be able to take advantage of those strengths. And on the other side of that, if there are weaknesses, I've got to prepare for that as well. And then I'll kind of move around a little bit on the offense, look at the running back stuff, see if I'm a power back, see if I got speed guys. Um, and then as the season goes on, I may try and do some trading, some free agency stuff, and try and tweak that. So I'm really going to self scout myself. Excuse me. And then moving over to defense, same thing. I'm going to start up front with the defensive line, and I'm going to figure out, what do I look like there? Am I going to be a 3-4 team? Am I going to be a 4-3 team? Or am I possibly deep enough to be a little bit of both, which is what I like to be. I like to be a 3-4 or a 4-3 and kind of use that as my advantage during the game. It seems like against some offensive lines, a 3-4 works better and a 4-3 works better. So I'll play with that in mid game and kind of go from there. So the big thing for me is to self scout and understand who I am.
Can I ask a
How's that
follow-up
sound?
question on that real quick? Is
Yep.
like, how do you do that? When you say you're looking at, do you have guards that can pull, or you're run blocking, zone blocking, and then on defense, are you 3-4-4-3? Can you give some tips about exactly what you're looking at to make those decisions, and then decide, okay, I have two out of the three pieces I need to run a 3-4, so I need to go find this, or I need to go find that.
Yeah, so on the offensive line, I look really heavily at my guard play. Um, I like guys that can move, but are also powerful at the same time. Um, because I like to run a power style run. If you have guys that can pull and you run that power play, you're going to be successful. If you try to pull a guard who's slow, may not be very agile, his agility's low, his acceleration's low, he's not going to be able to get out there and get that key block that you need to spring it. That's the most important block to me on a power play is that pulling guard. So that's extremely important. And on the flip side, when I'm running a 3-4 defense, I'm looking for three big dudes up front that are not going to be pushed back, and they're going to occupy that offensive line as long as possible and let my four linebackers flow and run to the football. So big dudes up front on the 3-4, When I'm looking on my offensive line, I like agile guards. I like a strong center that can really kind of hold that focal point. But I like guys that can move on the offensive line and on the defensive line. If I'm running a 3-4, let me get some big dudes that anchor down and cannot be pushed back.
No, that's perfect.
Good deal. And then kind of just moving on, looking at scouting my opponent. I like to start off looking at their offense and just kind of breaking down their depth chart and looking at their
Do you mind
skill
if you
position.
we just go ahead and do it? Like maybe we just do my Saints.
Yeah, let's do it. Let me jump in there and look at those guys. So just off the top of my head with the Saints, I know they've got obviously Alvin Kamara, who I need to be aware of at all times. So that's a guy that I'm gonna try on. Alvin Kamara, I'm gonna know where he's at all times. I'm gonna be aware of Kamara. And then obviously moving on, I haven't got your depth chart up yet, but I know moving on, we got Michael Thomas on the outside. Let me see if I can get the depth chart pulled up.
Do you always, when you're scouting somebody, are you going to just start like looking at the entire roster just to scan and figure out what's there, what's
Man, I
not
am
there, and then
losing.
do you start drilling down, or is there like a position you're like, okay, I want to know this first, this second, this third?
Yeah, it's skill position based for me when I'm looking at somebody's roster. That's where I'm going to start because that's where they're going to that's who they're going to try and lean on is their skilled guys, obviously, and they're going to lean on, especially with starting off with a fresh new Madden. Nobody is too loaded at one position like you'll see 3 and 4 and 5 seasons in, where guys are able to build players up and have maybe 2 to 3 good wide receivers that you got to prepare for. But so I start with the skilled guys. I look heavily at the wide receivers because of they can make a play right now on you and really change the game. So I'm always aware of these wide receivers. That's who they typically are going to go to in crucial third down situations. So for me, it's the skilled guys, mainly the wide receiver guys. I want to know how fast they are. I want to know if they're big, strong guys and they're going to be throwing to them inside a lot, that kind of thing. Let me find your Saints here. I got everything up and running now. So looking at Michael Thomas, not a guy that's going to beat you over the top a lot, 89 in speed, but he's a big dude that catches the football if it's anywhere near him. If you just look at his catch ratings, he's off the charts. His overall catch rating's high. His catch in traffic is high. His specialty catch is high. And then he's got a nice release, so he's going to get off the ball quick, even though he may not be a 93, 94, 95 guy in speed. His release is going to allow him to get off the ball and get open quickly. And then he's got that double me rating, which we'll see how that plays out. And then I'm looking at the opposite side and looking at Ted Ginn, a guy that's getting up there in age, but he's also got some speed and he's got some catching ability. I want to know who you're going to go to in crucial situations when I'm looking at this. And to me, it looks like you're going to go to Michael Thomas more times than not. So I'm going to have to focus on trying to take that away. But then I jump over and look at your tight ends, and you got Jared Cook who can run. He's a tight end who's big, 6'5", 250, runs well, catches the football well. He's a nice short route runner. He can jump. So, if I go and take away and just focus everything I've got on Michael Thomas, Ted Ginn's no slouch. Jared Cook's obviously going to be a threat. So you've got some weapons there. Just kind of jumping way ahead into my notes. That's where I'm going to look at you video wise. I may go look at some of your previous games since I'm not too familiar with your team. You and I have played a couple of times. I'm not too familiar with your style. You're going to show me, and when I look at those videos, what you want to do in crucial situations, what you want to do in 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, who you're going to go to. I mean, after I look at so much of your game film, that's going to come to the surface. And as a defense, I've got to try and take that away and make you beat me at least in my head, with somebody else. I want Ted Ginn to beat me. I want, your your slot guy, Traquan Smith or Kirkwood or whoever it may be. I want those guys to beat me on those crucial situations.
What do you start to look at on defense? Do you worry about areas to attack? Do you look at playmakers? Like, what are your thoughts when you're thinking about how your offense is going to attack their defense?
Yeah, so I know my offense. Let's say, for example, I'm going to use my Redskins team from last season. I took over a team that was, built really well. But if they had a weakness, it was probably playmakers on the outside at the wide receiver position. I had a tight end that was nice, and I had, our favorite name in football, Ragnar Ledbetter, that would just pound the rock. So I wanted to see where I could exploit them running the football. Sometimes it may be, okay, this guy is really heavy with his right defensive end, and his right outside linebacker is a stud. In those crucial situations, I may say I'm running away from those guys. I'm avoiding that side of the field like the plague with Ledbetter, and I'm going to try and neutralize that advantage that he has by running away from him. Taking advantage of the center guard position on my team was pretty strong, so I would try and run in between the tackles and neutralize that outside linebacker that may be a stud on your team, or maybe you have a middle linebacker that is just a tackling machine. Then I'm going to try and obviously pound you up front with Ledbetter. And then I had Duke Johnson, and in those crucial situations, I may rely on Duke Johnson to try and spring one to the outside for me and make your middle linebacker try and chase me down that way. So definitely looking at the front seven always first, because I like to run the football. That's what I like to do, and I like to do that because that's what I do well. I'm not a very good passer, so I know my weaknesses, and that's a big thing when you self-scout. You should probably know what kind of football player, what kind of Madden player you are. You should know what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. And some guys that you find in the OMFL, they don't have many, so that's why they win a lot of football games.
What about the cornerback back end situation? Are you looking at a guy to avoid, a guy that maybe you can attack? I know that when you watch the film, you're going to know, is this guy a linebacker? Is he a defensive end? Is he control of safety? What are your personal feelings? Do you like to attack him, or do you like to just kind of see the film and stay away from him?
If I like to attack anybody, this is probably my ego more than anything. I like to attack anybody that's using a player, especially if they're using a cornerback. I like to try and attack that. Some guys are really good at it, but there's some routes in here that you can run that's really tough to keep up with. Typically these double move type routes, and they can be these out and ups that are a deep route, or they can be that little play where your receiver comes in and immediately cuts right back out. If you're user in that play, that's a tough one to recover on, because you're automatically thinking this is a slant, he's going inside of me, and you're coming down hard on a speed burst if you're user in that corner, and then here comes the wide receiver, especially if he's quick and he's right back out. So I look to attack those guys, and it's probably been to my detriment, because some of those guys that we play against in the OMFL are really good at usering, especially using those linebacker spots. So I would try and attack those guys, and I turn the football over a lot because of that. But so definitely when I see a guy that has a tendency of using a corner, a slot corner, I try to attack it and try to take advantage of them, especially in the pass game, obviously.
Now, I know, for one, I do a lot of the things that you were saying today, and I think this has been super helpful. Where I struggle, and I'd love to hear your insight and your expertise, is it's one thing to look at a team on paper, look at stats. I don't know, do you look at stats at all? I know that I'll find myself, okay, I can look at the team on paper, but let's look at their stats, and that'll really tell a story too. Do you keep an eye on any stats?
I definitely do, because there's guys that may have some nice high attributes, but it seemed like, at least in the last Madden, they may not have performed up to those attributes. And then there were other guys that had some maybe mediocre attributes that really performed well. John Ross was the guy that didn't have really high attributes when he started out in Madden, but he performed at a high level. And I think a lot of it had to do with he's such an exceptionally fast guy. So teams were able to exploit that using his speed against you. So I definitely look at the stats. One of the things that I like to do when I take a peek at your previous plays, especially if I'm limited on time, I go and look and try and at least watch the entire fourth quarter. And I'm hoping that that game that I'm watching in the fourth quarter is a close game, and I can see who you lean on.
That's
And
super interesting because I'll
yeah,
find myself actually watching the first two. So I think that's a super interesting perspective that you actually go to that fourth quarter to see where they're going to lean on.
yeah, because I mean, there's so many games in this OMFL, which is great, that come down to that fourth quarter, that come down to maybe the last couple of drives. And I want to see the entire fourth quarter. I want to see what you're doing, Nate. You're up 7 and you got the ball with 5 minutes to go. I want to see what you're doing to put this team away. I want to see who you lean on, what plays you may lean on, because we all end up having our comfort plays, and that's kind of it's like a tell in poker. That's when you're going to show your hand of what you're going to lean on in those crucial situations, whether it's third down or whether it's just I need a game-winning drive, and maybe I'll see something on first down that you have a tendency to go to game after game in the fourth quarter to kind of get you in that second and medium or second and short situation. So I'm looking for that stuff.
So, last question for me, as we kind of wrap things up here. I think this has been awesome, and so I appreciate you taking time on a Friday to do this. I hope the guys like it. I think that they'll love it, and we'll do more of these as guys have time to do. But like I was trying to get to a second ago, once you look on paper, you look at the stats, you watch some game film, you get an idea of what exactly you're going to go in for a game plan. How much of that is flexible? How much of that do you, no matter what happens in the first quarter, you just kind of stay the course and stick to your game plan? Or how much of that do you just like, okay, I went in with this game plan, but first quarter he was doing this, and so I'm going to change?
Yeah, I probe the whole game, especially in the first half, but I'm probing the whole game. I have my game plan, and I'm wanting to use that. At least I like having a plan, but I'm 100% not going to. I'll deviate from that plan in the drop of a hat if I can exploit something else. Maybe you lose a key guy to injury in the first quarter. Maybe he's out for the game. Maybe he's only out for a quarter or so. Well, I'm definitely going to adjust my game plan based on an injury. I'm going to adjust my game plan on maybe something is working. It seemed like in Madden 19 that maybe a play or a scheme wasn't working so well, 2 weeks ago, but I try it again and it seems to be working against your team for whatever. So yeah, I'm constantly available to adjust. And I think another thing that we did leave, I just want to touch on real quick is when I see a weakness, and maybe it's one that I can exploit because it's a strength of mine on defense, I'm going to use that before the game even starts in training. So if I'm looking at my secondary and I see I got a clear advantage over your wide receivers, I have a clear advantage there. Well, I'm going to look to try and stop your run, and I'm going to help myself by doing that, by doing some training. Maybe I'm going to focus on, practicing the inside zone, or I'm going to use that gap play, or maybe you're really strong at running the ball outside with Kamara. I'm going to work on that outside zone, and I'm going to give my front seven some attribute points bonus there when you run those type of plays. So it's the whole scheme. It's adjustments. It's before the game. It's during the game. Um, it's a total package.
One follow-up question before I let you put a bow on things. When you're scouting, right, you laid out a pretty intense scouting layout here, and I know that I'll try to do a lot of the things that you said, but sometimes we don't have time. So what is an average amount of time that you'll spend on someone? And if you're super tight on time, what are maybe the one or two things that you go to immediately to at least give you something?
Bare bones, I'm looking at your depth chart and your statistics to see who it is um, you're leaning on, and to see. I want to know my advantages. I want to know where you're stronger than I am. I want to identify your weaknesses. I'm going to the depth chart every single game, regardless, because I can do that in you know 60 seconds. We can breeze through a depth chart and kind of see uh, where you're really strong. And some of these guys that you play every twice a year, you already know this. Um, but yeah, not a lot of times. I don't always have time to look at game film, so I will try to look at least a few minutes, um, of your previous game and kind of see what you've done. But you're always limited, and when
What's
I am limited, I'm going to the depth chart first.
what's an average amount that you think you are able to spend on scouting an opponent?
I think last Madden I was able to spend quite a bit, maybe a good 25 to 35 minutes. I thought that was a lot. This Madden, we'll see. I've got a little bit more responsibility at work, so that may hinder me a little bit. But I would spend a good 25, 35 minutes. I would, I work in an office situation, so I may flick on
Yeah.
the Twitch during lunchtime. Enjoy my lunch and watch a little bit of Nate, versus one of your fun opponents there in the South. So.
Well, Denver, this has been awesome. I'm gonna let you put a bow on the show and wrap us up as we get out of here.
Okay, so just to summarize, and this is what I do, and hopefully this is going to help everybody out a little bit. But I think the most important thing that you can do and to have success in Madden is to know what kind of player you are. Regardless of what team you have and what opponent you're facing, you should really know what kind of player you are, and you should play to your strengths. You should play to your strengths. Don't try and be Mr. Drop Back and Throw It, all the time if that's not your gig. But I will say this: when you're doing adjustments and you're doing scouting and you're doing play calling, you can't ever lose sight of the OMFL's FPR rules and the spirit of our community, because it's really cool and it's really fun when you have a battle and both teams really followed everything they should have, and you guys can have a cool conversation afterwards, win or lose. So um, that's my bow for this one, and it was a lot of fun, and I appreciate you asking me to be a part of it, Nate.
No, this has been awesome. I hope that you guys have enjoyed all 22. Make sure to check out our previous episode. I break down a little bit about how I create custom playbooks. I think custom playbooks are the way to grow. And now we get you some information about how to scout, what you should look at, and kind of idea of what type of time commitment it may be. And if you're for a crunch, here are the quick things that you can go do. So, DenBrew, thanks so much. I hope that you guys enjoyed the show. We'll see you next time. Peace.
Appreciate it.